Welcome to Live Up to Freedom. Thank you so much for joining me today in this beautiful yet rainy but soft rain and romantic. That's why I'm very pink. I'm kidding. It has nothing to do with romance. I'll tell you why I'm pink later. That's not important. It's not even relevant. It might be. If we reform Islam, we can look at some more pink rather than black. Anyways, we are live on worldviewtube.com, worldviewtube, Rumble and X, worldviewtube app, which is available for free on your app store. We're also live on X America News on X and live on my platforms of Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, X, and Substack. Join the conversation if you like. I told you yesterday I'm going to be joined by my very dear friend, sister in Christ, Hedi Amir Ahmadi, to discuss reforming Islam, because that's a topic that needs to be addressed again. So I may not pay too much attention to the comment sections, but I will glance. And if you have a question for me or Hediya, then put them in all caps so it kind of screams at me, and then I'll make sure to read them during the show. Let's just dive right into it. Let's welcome Hedi Amir Ahmadi, who's no stranger to Worldview Tube or my audience. She's got a great story, and if you have not heard it, where have you been? Go pick up her book, or go to her Instagram, go to her website, or watch her other interviews. You get the full picture. Hedi John, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. Always a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you. I look forward to our discussion. I'm a little worried it's not something to be squeezed in an hour, but we'll do what we can. And then if we need to do part 2 and 3, we can always do that.
So we're not just going to say you can't reform Islam. Goodbye.
I was planning to do that. I was going to say, hey, listen, Islam is not reformable, but I am. Look, I'm wearing pink. Something I don't do. Like everything's pink.
I'm wearing a t-shirt with my arms showing and my hair.
Right? Yeah, I mean, we can be reformed apparently, but not Islam. But then I realized if we do that, then those who still have a idea, they think they have ideas to reform it, they might get ahead of this narrative. And as you know, my new thing is I'm done with all the hijacked narratives, and I will address every single one of them as long as I need to bring them back to truth. So let's start with what resurfaced this discussion of Islam reforming again, which was a recent endorsement by Turning Point USA of not just one, but 2 Muslim candidates, being Abe Hamadeh of Arizona and Zuhdi Jasser of the most well-known Islam reformer, who has his own controversial. You know him from your side. I know him from my side, 2 very different sides. So let's start there. We had a long private conversation about it, but let's rewind for my audience and I'll start with you. Where do you stand with the endorsement, and why do you stand where you stand with the endorsement?
Okay, so I think, and you and Brandon have talked about this, Brandon I know talks about it a lot, who is TPUSA today? Because when Charlie was killed, his last weeks had a heavy focus on the dangers of Islam. So if we could imagine that he were still with us, I don't think he would have done those endorsements, because he made it clear that that he literally said Islam, jihad, is the sword that is cutting the throat of Christians in America. And so I just couldn't imagine him endorsing candidates. So if we're going to say that TPUSA represents a Christian conservative movement, then I would say, how could you endorse Muslims? That we would be endorsing Christian, or at least, secular Christians, whether they're practicing Christians or not, whatever, but that they're Christian conservative candidates. So
you don't think Charlie Kirk would believe in reformers or moderates?
I don't know if I haven't seen anything where he addressed that, but it's hard to say. It's hard to say whether he would believe it's reformable, but I think based on who he was building as his base, how could he be talking against it on college campuses, advising people in private circles, in having public events talking about Islam, and then endorse a Muslim candidate? I think that would have looked very strange in his narrative. But whether he actually personally believed it was reformable, I don't know.
I have again, I can't prove it, but I have a very strong feeling he did not believe in moderate versus radical. And it's based on, what you said, watching what he posted or what he said, he was like me and you. He didn't address Muslims. He never says Muslims are going to kill us. He knew how to differentiate between Islam and Muslims, but I
Right.
don't think he didn't even call it radical Islam. And
No,
that's where my guess is. I don't think he believed in moderate versus radical because he never called it neither one. He just called it
absolutely.
Islam. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but go ahead.
No, no, you're absolutely right. I think, and so I firmly, adamantly believe that TP Action, TP USA, TP Faith should not be endorsing Muslim candidates.
Right. Of course, I think nobody should endorse. I remember
There's that.
many of my audience were very mad at me when I said, why would Trump endorse Dr. Oz, and then why would Kerry Lake endorse Abe Hamadeh? And I was like, oh, you're so. I think
Racist.
no. Well, at that point, it was more of a bigot and Islamophobe and an anti-Trump narrative. That's what hits me when I say things like that. We will address. Well, let's address Abe Hamida for a split second because there isn't too much to say, and then we go to Zudi. My experience was so I tracked Abe for a long time. And when Carrie Lake decided to turn him into her running mate, basically in Arizona, what I did was I reached out to Abe Hamida. I still have the emails, by the way, because I keep every email I ever have in my life, probably since 2008.
Me too.
I invited him to my show, and he agreed. And we had a date and a time, and he requested for me to send him the potential question I'm going to be asking. So I sent, and someone from his office at this point contacted me to saying, "Oh, we need to reschedule." And to this day, they have not rescheduled. That was all the answer I needed as far as Abe Hamid is concerned. That you're agreeing to come on my show. When you hear that I'm airing on a conservative network, but then when you see my questions, you don't want to show up anymore. I mean, I think you agree that when you don't want to show up, that's because you got something to hide.
Most likely, yes. Or you just are afraid of the controversy of talking about it.
True. But that's where I'm with Abe Hamadeh. He doesn't exist on the paper earlier than 2006. And I mean, literally, he doesn't exist.
Wow.
Even when I pulled his background check, the birth date is there, but then there's nothing blank until we get to 2006. He was
Was he in
handpicked
law
by.
enforcement?
He was military.
Okay, because just so you know that same thing occurred for my husband when I first started dating him. Their profiles, their public profiles can be locked.
Yes, but not when I dig, because I have got information on other military, police officers, detectives, ADAs, all of that. The thing is, he doesn't exist until he becomes the CIA trainee and then shipped to Saudi Arabia as the liaison for our arms deals. How's that for completing the background check?
I did not know that about him. I did not track him.
Oh, that's the thing. My red alert goes louder and brighter when I see a Republican Muslim. Republican, the moment that I'm like, okay, there's something wrong with that picture. But anyways, that's where I'm with Abe Hamadeh. However, thanks to Kerry Lake, he got elected, and he's officially a congressman anyways. Anything you want to add to the issue of Abe Hamadeh himself, or can we move on to Zuhdi Jasser?
No, let's move on because I don't know enough about him to say. Have you tracked his policies while in Congress?
Yes. Very inactive.
Okay.
I think my broken, disassembled pen has signed more active actions for America. Has taken no action against anything un-American or unconstitutional. Has not. Okay. Still verbally claims that we should deal with illegals, but he has not been part of any of the acts or bills or legislations of stopping illegals and closing borders, which was his biggest thing. And that was one of my questions, by the way, in the questionnaires that I sent him was, he's a first American born. His parents are immigrants. So, as a child of immigrants, where do you stand with legal immigration that is infiltrating our legal system? That was one of my
No.
questions for him, but he never showed up, so I have no idea where he stands with that issue. But so yes, he's not, at least so far, he hasn't delivered on any of his promises.
Well, people should hold him to account for that. What is his voting record?
And that's a problem. That's where I go back to what you said originally. Turning Point USA or TP, whatever comes next. One thing that I have noticed since Charlie Kirk was murdered is that they have dropped all the seriousness of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
He was very serious. He didn't just go with the flow.
Yes.
Again, it's kind of sad, I guess, but my last addressing of Charlie Kirk was correcting him, setting the record straight on Iran's history because he made a major mistake and said a very wrong thing. So I addressed his mistake and corrected him respectfully. But in general, I didn't follow him. I wasn't, a follower or supporter. But what I know of him is he was factual. He did his
Yes.
homework, but looks like with this list of endorsement, TPA did not do any homework. They didn't look into, okay, did Abe Hamid do great? Did he do good?
Right.
Did he do excellent? Oh, he's a Republican. He's already elected. He's got the support of President Trump and Kerry Lake. Let's go. And I think that's, to me, the reason they went for Zuhdi Jasser. I don't think they even looked at anything he's ever done.
Wow.
They just figured military, that's a good sign. Republican, conservative, supposedly, that's a great sign. And where we can deny Islamophobia by endorsing an active practicing Muslim.
Oh, yuck. If that's one of the reasons, that's horrific that you're giving into the whole Islamophobia mob. That would be a horrible reason.
I can't find any other, honestly, looking at it, I can't find any other reason anyone at TPUSA would say, this guy's a good candidate to endorse.
Well, and what's sad is I went on Ballotpedia to see who else was running to see if I could find a better candidate, and he's running unopposed.
Yes.
And I think that was the problem. I would have rather see TP put forward a candidate, get somebody to run, say, hey, look, you may not have resources or you may not have a huge reach, but we will elevate your reach rather than just take the lowest hanging fruit.
Yes, but then at the same time, that would have created the few problems. One, automatically the Islamophobia, because remember, before Charlie Kirk was murdered, the Islamophobia narrative was already hitting Charlie and TPUSA. It was already hitting them.
Oh, okay.
So, well, me and you, we don't, but someone...
They shouldn't either. Charlie didn't.
True, but that's something we can get into deeper next segment. It's. I'm gonna say this, and on the comment sections, it's open. Hit me. Have a party. Erica Kirk is doing a lot of damage control. Charlie Kirk was running the organization. There's a difference.
Yes, huge difference.
So let's do that. Let's close it here. Let's go take our first ad break. I will glance at the comments during ad break. If you have questions, again, put them in all caps so I can grab them. When we come back, let's talk about the damage control and just Zuhdi Jasser with it. We will right back, guys. Don't go anywhere.
Life is too short to spend a single moment spinning in laundry worries. Take a load off your mind with the all-new Norwex Powerzyme laundry detergent. This natural detergent harnesses the power of enzymes and plant-based surfactants to leave fabrics fresh and clean without fillers, brighteners, synthetic fragrances, bleach, or harsh chemicals. So go ahead, have your cake and eat it too. More than ever, stressful stains have met their match. Powerzyme's fast-acting enzymes break down organic substances while natural surfactants loosen locked-in dirt and oil, removing residue, stains, and odors with ease. With 91% bio-based ingredients, this dermatologist-tested hypoallergenic formula is suitable for sensitive skin types and delivers a safe and effective clean that won't harm you or the planet's waterways. Less time spent worrying about laundry means you can focus on what truly matters. Norwex Powerzyme Laundry Detergent. Discover the power of nature and load up on confidence.
Welcome back to Live Up to Freedom. Thank you so much for staying with us until now. And remember, the Mother's Day sale is still going on. So go to cyruswellness.com. There are so many different offers. I can't list them all, but I can promise you that you'll be very happy with your purchases. And that way you also support me, because as a consultant, every time you make a purchase through my URL, which is cyruswellness.com, percentage of your purchase is commissioned back to me. So get your Mother's Day gift, or just get yourself a stuff. That's what I did. I mean, I'm not a mother, I know, but that doesn't mean I don't get to buy, skincare and treat myself to Mother's Day gift. Okay, let's dive back into the discussion. And I did see your comments. Great comments, guys. I will address them. So anyway, we closed with damage control. At least I think that's where TPUSA is. And that's where Erica Kirk is. And I made it very clear over and over on my show that I'm neither against her nor for her. I don't know her enough, and I don't care for what she's doing, because unfortunately or fortunately, people are already bashing her for every blink, so I don't need to go there with them. But what I do care is, unfortunately, a legacy and an organization that was making an impact, especially through faith, is falling apart. And I don't think this latest move has helped them necessarily. Anything you want to add to that before we get to Zudi?
Honestly say we have the utmost sympathy for her watching her husband be assassinated in such a gruesome fashion on public TV is just terrific. But the controversy about whether, and there's an interesting discussion to be had about whether Charlie had a succession plan. Did he appoint her? Did she ask to be CEO, or did the board, because they have a pretty, a robust board, did they choose her? And if they did, then why? I don't know if she had the expertise and the fortitude, the resilience to take on this fight. I mean, it's an extremely dangerous job. We saw at the White House Correspondents' Dinner people saying she was running and crying and saying, I just want to go home. It's just shots fired. And your husband was killed in a very public way. So this is a very dangerous job. But does she have the resilience and the fortitude to carry this job? And I think it's been demonstrated that maybe she doesn't. Not to say anything bad about her as a mother, as a woman, even as a smart intellectual, all of the qualities that she may possess, but does she have the chops, so to speak, to run this legacy? I don't know if she does.
I agree with that. And right before we got on air, we quickly touched on something that I think would be good to bring up, which was the fact of part of it is the public's fault. The expectation of you got to fill in his shoes. Nobody can fill anybody else's shoe. And the pressure that was put on her, again,
Right.
I'm neither for her, against her, nothing. I don't have an opinion about her when it comes to her role as the CEO of Turning Point USA. But when the pressure on its own, I think, can break many people.
Yes.
I guess people who supported Turning Point USA, they need to make a decision. There's a new boss. You either go with the new boss's policy or you don't. There's no reason to damage Charlie Kirk's legacy. His legacy was achieved. His legacy belongs to him. And I know there's a difference of meaning behind the word, but for me, let's not start scratching his legacy because we don't like the new boss in the office.
Well, for sure. And I think most of us just wanted to see it continue to grow. We wanted to see it continue to have a substantial impact on our young people and promoting the conservative movement and the ground game that he established to have Trump in the White House and to have all the elected officials that we had across the country win their campaigns. I think that's what we were all hoping for, that the momentum could at least stay the same or even get greater. And we did. If you remember, we had that momentum in the very beginning. People across the country, especially as a move for Christ, people kept talking about revival. Is this revival? If this is revival. And it was fantastic to see how many people came to faith in Christ and started going to church and came back to the Lord. And then it just kind of exploded. It just, all the conspiracy theories about her or TPUSA's involvement in Charlie's death, which I think are horrific accusations. I don't believe for a second that she was involved in that. I'm just going to put that out there. Or that TPUSA was involved in that. Or that Bibi was involved in it. I don't believe any of those conspiracy theories.
Oh, no. That's why I did it. Like Candace proved that already. With all the screenshots I haven't seen yet.
Right, exactly.
Bad
So,
joke.
I would have liked to have seen at least the momentum, and I actually think the endorsement of Muslim candidates set them back. It really does. With all Erica controversy aside, I think it sets them back.
Yes, now let's generalize this because we have a question from Lori, which I agree with that question. Why do you think that conservatives are supporting the Muslim candidates or Muslims getting into politics, especially when they can see from certain cities and the states the mess that creates? We know the movement. They have infiltrated the Republican Party. But why are conservatives not seeing it? I mean, I think they see it. Why are they not stopping it?
I think it's pretty clear. So I have a very conscious memory of being, next to Zuhdi for 15 years. Like I was one of those reformers in most of those rooms with Zuhdi. So I know the sentiment, and always, though I served in both administrations, I was a conservative. And so I know the sentiment is there's 1.2 billion Muslims in the world. There's, anywhere between 5 and 7 million in America. We do have a Muslim constituency, and those are votes and those are money. And so how do we bring them into the party? So that effort started decades ago. And quite frankly, most Muslims supported Bush. It was only after the Iraq war went kind of south that Muslims started moving left. So there was a huge contingency. There was a lot of appointments made during the Bush era into positions of government, whether it was even in counterterrorism or in the White House. I had a whole charade with one of them, Sohail Khan, that was in the White House during Bush. So it's been a long time that those relationships have been established. And Charlie knew Zuhdi personally. So that relationship also existed before this latest crisis about Sharia law in the United States. So I think people want to believe, and we know even very conservative people that talk against Islam and its influence all the time want to believe Islam could be reformed. And people like, Bridget Gabriel put forward people like Zuhdi as an example, like, hey, here's a good Muslim. And so I think he has those kind of endorsements. So people are like, okay, well, he's a good Muslim, and therefore it should be okay.
Right. The good Muslim.
The good Muslim.
The good Muslim.
So let's define, what is that exactly? What is a good Muslim?
Right. It's a long time ago, to be exact, in 2016, I did a video, like terribly. I'm literally sitting on the floor, my phone's on my hand against the wall doing a video, because back then I didn't have all of this. But I actually addressed this very sentence, good Muslims versus bad Muslims. And it comes down to who is addressing that term. Are we talking about the good Muslims, or the Quran talking about good Muslims? Because they completely oppose each other.
Yeah, that's very different.
What we describe as a good Muslim is specifically what's described in the Quran, different verses of including reformers. I have said this on my show before. There is a specific verse in the Quran that says, when you ask them, why are you creating corruption on earth? They will say, we're not but the reformers. How ahead of everybody else was Muhammad?
It's the demonic influence that was able to feed him information that he needed at the time.
Exactly. And we both know the word monafiqin, those who create corruption on earth, are well, that's punishable by death. So how's that for the good Muslim fellow Zuhdi Jasser? Because what I wouldn't, but what Bridget Gabriel would describe as good Muslim, or many other, shall be punished by death under Sharia itself. And I think that's exactly where the confusion comes from. A lot of Americans don't understand terminology is very different. When we say peace, when they say peace, two very different meanings.
Well, and I mean, I'd like to break down for your audience. Let's just even take the reform movement at its word and say, okay, you're saying you want to reform Islam. So what parts of Islam are you keeping and what parts are you getting rid of? Mm-hmm. And I think even when you break that down, and for me, this has been an evolution, because I've had to, since coming to Christ, there's so much of my stance and who I was that the Lord has stripped off of me and given me the chance to look back and be like, do you see the deception here? Do you see how you were deceived? And so that's still an evolution. And that's why you and I spent hours on the phone where you kind of breaking this down for me, which was extremely helpful, because now I can look back and say, okay, well, I was in a sect that didn't want jihad, that didn't believe the legal grounds from Islamic jurisprudence did not exist to call for a military jihad, and then went through a series of explanations of all the different meanings of jihad, which kind of mirrors your book, Architecture of Jihad. So educational jihad, lifestyle jihad, meaning family and having children and stuff, were all okay. You just couldn't do a military jihad. And so taking it out of the context of just Zuhdi, what does reform mean? Does that mean you just want a separation of church and state? And then is that where it stops? Like, do you still believe in polygamy? Do you still believe in multiple wives? Do you believe in child marriage? Do you believe in FGM? Do you think that they should have Eid prayers in the park? Like, where do you draw the line of what is acceptable unless you get a manifesto that says, this is my new version of Islam? How do we know where that line is? That's my biggest problem at this point.
Yes. And that's the thing. What Zuhdi Jasser or Shireen Quddusi or many other reformers are trying to do, my argument with them, when I had a chance to have an argument with them before I was shut down, which is another sign. Again, if somebody has a mission and a goal and a vision, they should not be afraid of a debate about their idea and that vision.
For sure.
But my experience with reformers has been that. And as you found it when I told you, not by name, but Zuhdi Jasser publicly has called the counter-jihad movement more dangerous to America than jihad itself, right?
Yeah, called it the alt-jihad.
Exactly. Like, how do you want me to support you when you legitimize those who want to kill me by telling me that I'm the reason they want to kill me? Oh, wait, you don't want to reform Islam? You're just sugarcoating Islam. That's my stand with Zuhdi Jasser. But my argument with them when I got a minute to insert the line was, what you're trying to do has been done. And the world knows it as Baha'is. Baha'ism is the reform, peaceful part of Islam. And look what is happening to anyone who's a Baha'i. Inside every Islamic country, Baha'is are #1 targets of the government.
You want to explain a little bit for the audience what Baha'is are?
I will explain that. We're due for our next ad break. So hold that thought, guys. I will scan through the comments again if you have any questions. When we come back, we'll talk about Baha'ism, which is the reformed Islam. Be right back. Well, hello, everybody. It's Annie Cyrus. Welcome to my artist studio where all the magic happens. This is the station for painting, and that is the station for all the resin art I do. If you want to check out my art, all you gotta do is go to lutfstudio.com. finish this painting, but I'm sure, or at least I hope, I'll see you at lutfstudio.com. I promise you that painting was done 6 years ago and it was sold 6 years ago. But I still hope to see you at my artist studio, lutfstudio.com. I know we don't have any paintings, any diamond paintings, very low on inventory, but I'm working on that. But what's left in there is still available, 10% off with promo code MISSION, lutfstudio.com. And I love that we play that second ad, so I kind of boost my energy back up halfway through the show. With that energy back up, let's talk about Baha'is. So I want to be very clear about something first and most. I have had a lot of, I have spent a lot of time with Iranian Baha'is. I want to be very clear. What I'm about to describe is nothing against them. They are some of the most wonderful people I've ever met in my life. 4 of them were absolute solid protection for me in Turkey during my refugee time. These 4 young men were literally cutting through their own sleep to make sure I'm fine, I'm safe, I get to the hospital, all of that. Wonderful people. And they did strip Islam of all of the violence and the hatred and all of that through their prophet, that is Abu Baha, or Baha'u'llah, some call it. And he showed up and he said, I'm going to reform this thing. And he did. And Baha'ism was born from it. One of the conditions to convert to Baha'ism is actually you need to be a Shia Muslim, not even Sunni or Wahhabi. You got to be a Shia Muslim to convert to Baha'ism. That's actually why you see the biggest growth of Baha'ism inside Iranians and Pakistanis. You see a lot of them in that area. And immediate backlash came through Baha'u'llah himself. And then anyone who converted to Baha'ism was officially targeted by muftis of the time. And then later on, the supreme leader and all of that were targeted as not just kafirs or infidels, but also the hypocrites. Inside Islamic Republic of Iran by itself, as I said, I had 9 roommates, and except one, actually 8 out of 9 were Baha'is. And every single one of them, young men, they escaped one way or another persecution or execution, simply for the fact that they're Baha'is. One of the reasons most of them are known to the regime is inside Iran, when you register for anything, you apply for a job, you apply for university, school, whatever, there's a box that asks you what's your religion. And Baha'is are not like us. Well, unlike Muslims who are allowed to actually fake their religion and not say they're Muslim, nobody else does that. So Baha'is would check the Baha'i option, and immediately within 48 hours, they were in trouble, or they would just not go to university. They would not get a legal government job. They're second-class citizens for that very fact. So their biggest temple is in Chicago, Illinois, by the way. So if you are, if you want to know more about them or anything, their biggest temple is right here in Chicago. So there you go. Hadiya, they reformed Islam and they called it Baha'ism. So what do we do now?
Well, and I have another example, is that a lot of scholars in the Muslim world believe that the reform movement started within Islam, not starting a separate religion, was Ibn Wahhab, who came and started the Wahhabi Salafi sect, which was a reform against the Sunni, the Ahl Sunnah scholars who had corrupted the religion. So it was a movement back to a strict literal interpretation of the Quran. Mm-hmm. So when people say reform, they compare the analogy to Christianity, where we say we are not reforming what Christ taught, it's basically reforming the church. But the Protestant movement was also a return to scripture. So it was that return to scripture made Islam even more violent. It basically revived everything they were doing in the military jihad before they were conquered by the West. Mm-hmm. So the reform within Islam made it worse.
And that's exactly what it is. That's why a lot of time I even giggle when I say this. But my point is, you say reform, Unless you mean going back to Muhammad days, there's no reform, because reform means, reform, going to origins. That's how you
Right.
reform. You're coming up with new ideas. Like, they're repeating. I'm sure Zudi Jasser will never see this, but I hope you do. Because I have had this thought of, you're trying to repeat Muhammad's footsteps, because that's what Muhammad did, right? Muhammad borrowed verses of the Bible and the Torah and the Bible and the Torah and the Bible and the Torah. And when he realized, well, just borrowing or stealing verses from existing religion is not going to make him popular, then he just came up with his own new verses of kill 'em all. When you want to reform Islam, meaning takes the peaceful verses out of Quran, you're repeating Muhammad's steps, because you're not going to go anywhere with it. What is there to stand on? You want to say, I don't know, let's use a peaceful verse of Quran. Be respectful to your parents. Well, I'm sorry, Christ said that way before Muhammad was even around. Like, why do we need that? There is nothing, there is no foundation to Islam or in the Quran or Muhammad by himself to be cleaned up. The foundation was stolen from Torah and the Bible. So we might as well say, why don't we erase Islam and go back to Christ? How's that for a reform?
Well, let's address the elephant in the room, because
Which
you
one?
and I, there's a couple of elephants, right? One of the
I
elephants
feel
is,
like I'm in India.
okay, so if Islam is not reformable, and you and I still have family members that are Muslims, and we're not advocating the destruction, and I think that's what Zudi's fear is that when we say Islam is not reformable, we're declaring takfir, meaning we're saying that he's an apostate and therefore calling for his death. And I think that's why he turned it around and said, well, all you people, you guys are calling for death, you're the al-Jihad. So if we get out of that loop, the question is, what do we do with Islam? What do we do with Muslims in America? And so I think that's a really important question, because even if we come to the conclusion, and I firmly do, that Islam as it is, as a religion, cannot be reformed, there is still a solution to the fact that they can engage in private worship, but to the extent it comes into contact with our laws, and I read your Substack today, which points this out too, is that we have to enforce the facially neutral laws of this country. Every court, every judge, every legislature, every zoning board, every city council should be enforcing the laws of this land. And so when we have these questions of, why is there Sharia law in a divorce settlement in Texas? Why is there a call to prayer when we have zoning laws? Like, all of these issues would have been addressed if we were enforcing the laws of this country. And we've gotten so far away from that now we're talking about, okay, can we reform Islam so we don't have this problem? That's not our job to reform Islam, especially not for me and you. We've left that nonsense. But I don't think it's the job of every Americans either to try to reform Islam or prop up a fake version of Islam. No, just tell them, you know what? We have people who practice Santeria and witchcraft, but you can't kill your chickens in your backyard. Sorry, can't do that either. You know what I mean? Is that if we just realize that we have standards, the biblical foundation of this country, and the rights to freedom and the protection and the pursuit of happiness for all people, we have to stand on our laws in order to protect the values that we cherish.
Agreed. Let me address what you said that might be Zudi Jasser's concern, that when we say there's no reforming Islam, then we're calling him an apostate and then calling for his death. I'm going to take everybody, to the best of my ability, to Quran chapter 2. We're going to start reading from verse 11. And when it is said to them, do not cause corruption on the earth, they say, we are but reformers. Unquestionably, it is they who are the corrupters, but they perceive it not. And when it is said to them, believe as the people have believed, they say, should we believe as the foolish have believed? Unquestionably, it is they who are foolish, and they know it not. And when they meet those who believe, they say, we believe, but they are alone with their evil ones. They say, indeed, we are with you. We were only mockers. Zudi, I don't call you apostate. Allah does. I could go on and read the rest of chapter 2, which is the second longest chapter of Quran, but I understand where his concern comes from, but I don't know where his common sense is. If you are worried that an ex-Muslim telling you what you're trying to do is not doable means the reforming you're trying to do is going to punish you by death, you don't get to call me the problem. You're going to have to go back and call the root of the problem which you're trying to fix.
Yeah, you were just pointing out the root.
I was just saying, Quran says you cannot reform me. And again, we don't have enough. I mean, I will gladly do Substack on it. This is not the only chapter or the only 3 verses that talks about reforming. There are verses where it says if you change one word of Quran, you're a kafir. One word. What reforming?
You're
Now,
right.
back to your point, from day one, I have said there's no reforming Islam. Again, not because of my feelings towards it, because I've read the Quran. And I know inside Quran it says you're not allowed to touch a word I said here. I'm allowed to contradict myself. I'm allowed to abrogate my previous says. I was working on chapter 4 of the audiobook of my book, The Architecture of Jihad. And I was rereading the hadith where Muhammad himself said that if I make an oath and I find something better than the first option that I took an oath on, I'm going to take the second one and I'm going to break my oath. How do you reform this guy? Now let's talk about that. Let's say you reformed the book. Okay. Which, by the way, is you're going to be left with a book that's smaller than my book. Because there's like itsy tiny bitsy pieces left. But even if you do, how do you reform the founder of this problem?
Exactly.
Are we going to deny
because that
all
it's
the-
included in Sharia. People have to understand that too, is that the sayings of Muhammad are part of Islamic law.
And it goes back to exactly what you pointed out earlier on the show. I am all ears, genuinely. This is a call out to all Muslim reformers out there. I am all ears. Send me your exact proposal. Past reforming. Send me your proposal. What is the objective and what is the blueprint and what is the road to get to our objective? I will look at it, and if it is solid, I will personally get behind you.
Agreed.
Have you ever heard any of them actually have a plan? Aside, stop attacking us. Anti-Sharia movement people are the problem. Anti-Cyrus is Islamophobe. Give us a minute. We're going to fix this. Except that, have you actually heard Zuhdi Jasser or anyone else say, here's how we will reform Islam? Because I haven't.
They're very good at talking points in the sense we don't want a theocratic state, a separation of the religion from the state.
That's how reforming Islam.
Yeah, which I'm all for. So the question is, what are we calling those people? So are they culturally Muslims? Because that's not reforming Islam. You're basically saying, actually, what the colonial powers enforced in the Muslim world after 1920, the secularization of Muslim nations, meaning the Quran was no longer a source of law for their constitutions. And that's how we saw modernization in Iran and Syria and Jordan and even Afghanistan, where they're wearing miniskirts and, going to the beach. There's no beaches in Afghanistan, but in Iran. So all of those efforts that were done to take Islam out of the state by force of the West were successful. Can we return to that? Do you think we could return to that? We should, at a minimum, be demanding that here in the United States. But could you see that ever happening in Saudi or any of these countries ever again?
Well, I would disagree with the last statement. Was it successful or was it a Band-Aid?
No.
Because that's the thing. Iran. If you look at history of Iran, it's like a constant band-aid. So come this dynasty enforcing a 12 Shia Imam, and then next one comes and secularized, next one comes back Islamized, secularized, and then
Yeah.
last one Islamized. So it wasn't successful. It was a good band-aid. It was a temporary solution. And that's, again, it's a temporary solution. And now today in America, we can't even force that in Middle East. Forget it. We can't even, our own constitution is not based on Quran, and we still give them a free pass when they apply their own Islamic law.
So what do we do?
I mean, let's talk about the solutions, because we do have to take one last break. Yeah, let's do that. Let's take our last ad break, guys, and then we're going to talk solution. I got some ideas, but I'm sure nobody's going to like them. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Live Up to Freedom. Thanks so much for staying with us until now. Great comments, by the way, guys. Let me add just one quick question before we bring Hediye back on. By go away, first of all, go away. I got your email yesterday. I am very grateful. I will respond to you later this evening or possibly tomorrow. But yes, please, I can use your expertise. And now Go Away has a question of, is there any trending of those among the Baha'i later converting to Christianity? Actually, I personally know an Iranian Baha'i family, entire family, mom, dad, sister, and two brothers who came to Christ. Yes. The sister married an American Christian. And from there you go. The entire family are Christian now. And it's been, I don't know, probably 10 years or so. But yes, but that's a topic. I'm going to see if Hediye is comfortable coming back on the show and we discuss, we touched that. Sorry, guys, there was a technical difficulty in the control room. So we're back. And I exactly remember what I was going to say. Hediye, if you feel comfortable coming back on the show, I want to address the brilliant line I said that I forgot, and then I remembered that anything that has come after Christ is a cult that has tried to claim power over the world under disguise of religion. I think that's something we should discuss another show, of course, because we're almost out of time. But I'm putting you on a spot. It's like, are you going to come back on my show to discuss?
Of course, anytime.
Okay, we only have a few minutes. Let's talk solutions. You want to go first or I go first?
You can go first.
No, you go first.
You want me to go first?
You go first.
Well,
you're always nicer.
Well, I think it is, and I've touched on this already, but I think it goes back to us enforcing our laws, is basically saying to you your religion and to me mine. I actually think that comes from the Quran, but it is basically saying you have your private practice of worship in your home with your family, whatever you're going to do, but the laws of this land will be enforced. And that's a heavy lift. It's a heavy lift because we have judges across the country. We just had one for Epic City that demanded that the state agency honor the agreement with Epic that they have complied with fair housing, even though there's all of these violations. So even if we put forward legislation, it's being overturned by the courts. So there has to be this concerted effort across the country, I think at the very local level, city and planning commissions demanding enforcement of what constitutional law calls facially neutral, meaning it's not affecting religion, it's not a burden on religion, it is about noise, parking, traffic, environmental quality, fair housing, equal protection, all of those things. And we just have to start doing it. It's a long process to get back to those foundations, but I think as of now, that's the only real solution. If the Muslims come up with some other way of going through an enlightenment, people are like, well, look at Saudi. And I get really annoyed at that example because Saudi, hosts a couple of football games and, flies Americans over on private jets and shows them these fancy places and goes to a shopping mall. And they're like, they reformed. They have not reformed. Their version of Islam is the most horrific version out there. And they've spent billions of dollars exporting that all over the world. And they're just mad at the Brotherhood because it's a Frankenstein they can't control that they created. So is there an enlightenment possible? Can the Saudis and the Qataris actually change and remove Islam from the state and go through an enlightenment and a modernization? I don't know. That's a question for another day. But as far as I'm concerned, we have to protect America and our values.
See, I told you you're always nicer. Starting with America, the solution inside America is as you said, we need to remember the freedoms are, let's be specific, freedom of religion protects your belief, not your actions. So the moment your belief turns into an action that is breaking the law in any shape or form, then your protection goes out the window. Now, we cannot constantly rely, unfortunately, we cannot constantly rely on our government to enforce those laws because we're a huge part of the problem. If we don't take back the language, if we continue talking about moderates versus radicals, it's the minority versus majority, we're not going to see much result in America, Hediye.
You're right.
The dialogue needs to change. And again, I want to emphasize, for over a decade, I have started my platform by saying the number one victims of Islam are Muslims.
Right.
And number one group are girls and women.
I am one of them, and so are you.
Exactly. So this isn't even just about saving America from Islam. It's possibly giving them the chance to become me and you.
Yes.
To see the light, to reach Christ. But if we're constantly censoring ourselves, remember, Pastor Parsa was arrested, put in handcuffs, taken to detention center for trespassing at a mall in Minnesota where two hijab-wearing women were offended by him talking to somebody else about the gospel. But he didn't stop. He didn't. Yes, but his action afterwards is the solution to the problem. I've been telling my audience, Hediye, for almost 2 weeks now, don't walk away from the conversation. When somebody says something on the comment section of your on your post, don't walk away or don't block them right away. Unless they're being disrespectful, that's different because I do that too. But if you can open the conversation, if you can counter their mindset, do it. You don't have to do it in an ugly way. You don't have to do it in a nasty way. But I think this is my main solution in America. We need to go back to the days where we debated over topics with facts, not emotion.
Great point.
And every American has to do it. It's not just me and you through our shows and social media. Hediye, every American who claims they love America and they want to see America go back to its good days, they need to address the problem of Islam inside America instead of addressing it as, the radical Islam infiltration. Like, that doesn't exist. That's a myth. That's as much of a myth as saying, some crazy liberal is a better candidate than some Muslim candidate.
Right.
And that's where I conclude on my solution. The second part of the first step of the solution after reopening conversation and debating is stop. Stop being so comfortable with always picking between lesser evil. Why don't we start looking for the good guys?
For sure.
I think that's another problem, Hediye. We're so used to it. We're so used to picking between the lesser evil, we don't understand we're constantly picking evil.
Who's the good guy?
I am a good guy. I mean, I'm a good gal. You're a good gal. Brandon House is a good gal. You know, Sharam Hadian is a good guy. Abdi Maziri is a good guy.
No,
There are
but I mean
plenty
in
of
the
us.
political space. In the political space, what do they
When
do
you,
about candidates?
well, that's the thing. Why do you think I'm not running for any of offices yet? Because I can't even get my own audience to stop saying radical versus moderate. So I'm not going to have a base support. When the conversation changes in America, then people like me and you and Abdi Maziri and Sharam Hadian, and Sharam did run, remember? Sharam
Yeah.
tried. That's where the problem within the solution is within the solution. Give us this base support, no financial, don't panic, just the base support where we know that you at least back us up when we stand on debate the stages saying this is not about moderate versus radical, this is about opposition to our constitution. Until some of the Americans can stand and understand that concept, the good guys and good gals cannot run to take offices.
Okay, so then before we close, can we talk about the ban Sharia? Is that a
We
good
don't
project
need
then?
we don't need to ban Sharia. I thought, I don't know if you caught my Substack from this
did.
morning. There's no need to ban Sharia, just enforce the law. You can't. There's no banning Sharia because of First Amendment, and part of Sharia being the religious practice. There's the ban Sharia word by itself is a myth. It's a never-ending argument.
I
We
keep
don't
trying
need
to tell people that, but they're like, Islam's not a religion, it's an ideology.
Yeah, it's not. But here's the thing. Unfortunately, our constitution is phrased in a way that if we try to argue that point, it's going to be 45 years from now, and well, it's Islamic. Why don't we just go with the actual tool that's in the toolbox instead of trying to, use a credit card to unscrew a screw?
Absolutely.
I'm
Absolutely.
on a roll today, aren't I?
Well, I just wanted to get that point across for your audience in case they didn't read the Substack, that we can't start wordsmithing Islam and say, call it Sharia, make it the big bad evil wolf, and then all we're going to do is ban Sharia and everything's going to be great. It doesn't work that way. Islam has constitutional protections as a religion. So if we just enforce the laws that we have, we should not have child marriage. We should not have polygamy. We should not have the call to prayer at 5 o'clock in the morning. We shouldn't have Eid prayers blocking highways. These are all things that we already have enforceable laws, but nobody's. I've read the court cases. I read about 8 of them, of the poor women who went to courts to get a civil divorce and had judges lecturing them about Sharia. Well, you agreed to get a Muslim marriage and now you don't like the terms and you want me to change them for you. Yes, I live in America. I expect you to enforce American laws, not the laws of Pakistan. And they lose. They lose over and over again to courts enforcing Pakistani law.
Oh, you think that's bad? I have been told by law enforcement of FBI to local police department to sheriff department that, ma'am, why don't you stop provoking them? I'm like, sir, because I'm an American, the First Amendment tells me I can be offensive and they can be offended. Why don't you stop them from trying to break into my house and kill me? Who's committing the crime here? They're committing a stalking. I'm practicing my First Amendment.
So
They just roll their eyes like I'm some crazy person making things up. That's again, that's why I can address these things, because I tangibly faced them in America as an American citizen, where they literally told me, well, it's your problem, go deal with it.
it's like it's happening in England. The guy who's praying across from the Hamas protest, he's the one that gets arrested
Yeah,
because he's potentially causing a riot.
yes, we're very out of time, but also remember, Islam aside, we're also the country that we arrest a woman who's praying in front of Planned Parenthood.
Right.
She gets arrested, not those who are butchering on our unborn children. Okay, before we go, Hadiya, where do people go to follow you, help you, support you, and watch your show?
resurrectministry.com. You could find all my stuff on there. Website's being redone, but it's still up. And Instagram is probably the best way to find me. Hediya Miramati is my username. And then I have a link tree. I have a link in there. Most of my videos are up there. If you want to donate to the ministry, that's the best way to find me.
Perfect. Appreciate you. I'm sure we're going to be chatting private call, continuing this discussion in a day or two.
Yes. Look forward to it.
Thanks a lot. Okay, guys, thank you for being here. I did see all your comments. They're amazing comments, but we are out of time, like absolutely out of time. I'll be back tomorrow with Barry Nussbaum. We're going to have some fun with all the achievements we have right now on the table. We won. Victor, woo, let's dance. We got it. We control Strait of Hormuz. No, we don't, but we will talk about that tomorrow. Until then, be safe, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.